Good afternoon. I'd like to welcome everyone to the 27 May 2009 public hearing of the Board of Architecture Review. I appreciate everyone in attendance this evening. My name is Derek Wingfield. I'm the chair, and got three of the other board members here this evening, and I'd like them to introduce themselves quickly, please.
Nathan Billings.
Greg Hosfield.
Rob Magrish.
Thank you, gentlemen. The board was established by zoning ordinance in 1958. Our first historic district was Gratz Park, and we now have a total of 14 historic districts. The board, which is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the Urban County Council, is a part of the Division of Historic Preservation. The Preservation Office maintains a full-time staff to assist you with your projects. The board encourages and recommends that applicants use them as a resource. The Preservation Office is located at 101 East Vine Street in room 220. It is our procedure to consider applications in the order in which they are listed on our agenda. In each case, we'll have a presentation by staff and hear any additional comments from the applicant. The board will then ask questions or make comments regarding the application and hear comments from any other interested parties. The chair will then ask the board members to enter a motion. If you would wish to address the board this evening, please come to the microphone and state your name and address for the public record. I'd also ask that you please write your name on the sign-in sheet by the door so that all information may be recorded correctly. I'd also like to note the following staff approvals before we begin our review of applications. There are certain items that the staff may approve, eliminating the necessity for all applicants to appear before the board. There are a total of 8 approved applications this evening, and I'll need to read them into the record quickly here. There are 3 in the Aylesford Historic District. At 340 Linden Walk, replace window sashes, repair gutters. At 326 Woodland Avenue, replace sidewalk. At 330 Woodland Avenue, replace sidewalk and renovate structure. In the Constitution Street Historic District, there are 2. At 226 North Limestone, renovate structure. At 228 North Limestone, renovate structure including front porch. In the South Hill Western Suburbs, there are 2. 340 South Upper, at South Hill and Historic District, 340 South Upper Street, remove diseased tree. In the Western Suburbs Historic District at 645 West Short Street, remove diseased tree. And in Woodward Heights at 330 Madison Place, renovate structure. We'll now proceed with our Certificate of Appropriateness applications. The first application this evening is in the Seven Parks Historic District at 1701 Nicholasville Road. The scope of the work is to install signage. Is that applicant present this evening? Yes. If you would, sir, come forward and please give us your name and address.
Hello, I'm John Myers. My wife, Sarah Myers, operates the business located at 1701 Nicholasville Road.
Would you have
Our residence address?
Yes, please.
4392 Josiah Way here in Lexington.
Thank you very much, sir. Staff is recommending approval as submitted. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Let's see if anyone on the board has any comments or questions for you. Anyone? Would anyone in the audience like to speak to this case this evening? Okay. Hearing no further comments, would certainly entertain a motion on this, please.
In regards to case number 13971701-E at 1701 Nicholasville Road, I move that the certificate or the proposal be approved as submitted.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much. Thank you. The next case this evening is in the South Hill Historic District at 432 South Broadway. The scope of work is to enlarge a parking area. I would note for the record that there has been one letter received in regards to this project. Is that applicant present this evening?
Good evening. My name is Muhammad Siraji, 260 Bowling Springs, Lexington, Kentucky, 40511.
Thank you very much, sir. Staff has recommended approval with 7 conditions. Have you had an opportunity to read the staff's findings and conditions?
Yes.
Are you in agreement with them?
Well, I'm in agreement with all except the apron and the plunket side. And originally when we developed this plan, we gave it to the traffic. They sort of approved it, but The reason I don't want to agree with this number 2, and I just briefly talked to Amelia, ultimately the building inspection has to approve this, but I like to keep that as wide as possible because of the parking on the street from the, I guess, students. It gets so close to the stop sign and the property driveway and my driveway. It's always been a problem with us getting in and get out of that area, so I really like to keep it as wide as possible.
Okay. Was there another, one of the conditions you had a comment? or-
That's pretty much all I have
Okay.
is for the width of the,
Okay, sir, if you would, we'll have the staff present the case, and so everyone is on the same page, and then we'll be
Sure.
right back with you.
okay.
Thank you very much. Mr. Ginocchio?
Are we doing the whole case?
If you'd run through it
Okay.
quickly, please, yes.
This is property at 432 South Broadway. This is the area in question. This view here is Pine Street, and then this is the area which would be consumed by more paving area. This is a site from Plunkett, looking to the back of the building. At the previous board meeting, the applicant was granted a COA to construct a 2-story L-shaped wood frame addition to the building's rear northeast corner, to construct a handicap ramp adjacent to the proposed addition, and construct wood fence and install landscaping at the new ramp area. At this time, the applicant is requesting that the board grant a COA to enlarge the parking area to accommodate the shift in the parking arrangement as required by the construction of the handicap ramp. The enlarged parking area will simplify the parking arrangement, that's to all 90-degree parking along the north property line, and increase the parking spaces from 5 to 6 vehicles. Approximately 670 square feet of the existing turf will be paved in concrete. We listed the guidelines for your reference, the findings, the proposal to enlarge the parking area to accommodate the current on-site parking requirements is found appropriate. However, the manner by which it is accomplished requires careful consideration. In an attempt to conserve as much green space as possible in accordance with guidelines 3.5F, which states new curb cuts to access should be kept to a minimum. The width of the apron at the back edge of the sidewalk on Pine Street should not be greater than the existing 18-foot width, and the width of the apron of the property at the rear property line should not be greater than the existing 10-foot wide width driving aisle. The proposed width of the apron at Plunkett Street, though not indicated, scales to be 18 feet. Also, the southeast corner of the new paved area should not be accomplished as a right-angle paved edge, but rather as a curved edge as outlined by a vehicle backing out the 7.5-foot wide parking space. This would conserve green space and provide additional protection for the tree at the corner of the site. Recommendation: staff recommends the width of the apron at the back edge of the Pine Street sidewalk be 18 feet in lieu of 25. The width of the apron at the rear property line be 10 foot in lieu of 18 feet, and the viburnum planting be extended along Plunkett from the corner at the 3-foot on center to the edge of the 10-foot apron. 3, the existing apron at Plunkett Street be totally removed and the area returned to green space. Item 4, the southeast corner of the new paved area have a curved edge in lieu of a right angled edge. Item 5, concrete wheel stops be installed at all parking spaces And 6, a final drawing indicating all changes be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to the issuance of the COA. If any additional changes are required by other LFUCG divisions, those changes should come back to staff for review and approval.
Thank you, Mr. Ginocchio.
You're welcome.
Sir, if you'd like to come back forward, please. And again, just to rehash, you'd like to discuss condition number 2, that the width of the apron of the rear property line be 10 feet in lieu of 18 feet, and the viburnum plantings being extended along Plunkett Street from the corner at 3 foot to the edge of the 10-foot apron.
Sure, yes.
Correct.
Yes, I like to keep it as 18 feet.
Okay. Well, let's
Let me give you a brief history on this, please, if you don't mind. I really don't want to change the parking, but I don't know if you know history about this building. We had a fire a couple of years ago in the rear of the building, and that's why we decided to enclose that deck area that you saw in the pictures. And that's we've been approved for that, but the building inspections require us to add a handicap parking since it's an addition. We add into the building, and by adding the space for the handicap, we have to add another space for the parking, and that's really encroaching. We have such a small lot that really it's kind of hard to do everything they want us to do, but this is the best scenario we could come up with and still maintain what we had to do.
understand. Let's see if anyone on the board has any.
I have, it seems like there is one letter that you were handed today in reference to this project. I want to make sure you had that.
Yeah, yes, Mr. Ginocchio, we sure do. The letter, pardon? I'm not sure. The letter is encouraging the use of pervious paving. In a nutshell.
If they're willing to pay for it, I'd be glad to do it.
Well, let's see what the board members have any comments or questions for you, sir. Mr. Magrish?
I just had a couple questions for you. Has the relocation of the apron on Plunkett been approved?
Not that I know of. No.
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 Okay, so you're still waiting to find out whether you can actually do this?
Right.
From, was it Streets and Roads or whatever?
Engineering.
Engineering, traffic engineering. I just noticed that it's so close to the corner. They traditionally don't really approve that type of location, and I just didn't know if maybe you had any alternative plans should that be denied.
Well, originally, when we developed this plan, we did go through the traffic, and they accepted the plan. And ever since then, I don't really know, because we had to we were going to enclose the whole area rather than an L shape. We were going to make it a square closure. It was still
Right.
L closure, but it's a little bit of, we were going to add 86 square feet to the building.
Right.
That just created a whole different
Okay.
ball game that we don't want to go through that. It took us
Okay.
about 6 months to finally go back to original plan. And during that 86 square foot addition, we went through the traffic and presented a layout of parking
Okay.
with their help. And this is altered a little bit, but it pretty much stays the same as what we went to the traffic.
So this relocation of the apron was in the earlier plan that you
It
had
was
presented?
original, yes.
So they kind of gave it the go-ahead, but you haven't got anything official yet?
Right.
The other question I have, I mean, as was mentioned, it's been encouraged by the South Hill Neighborhood Association that you investigate the possibility of using the grass paving material that is similar to the product that is used at 505 South Mill Street and behind 316, 318 Pine Street. Have you looked into using that at all?
This is the first time I can check it and see what the cost comparison would be. I'd be glad to do that if,
This is just a suggestion that came up there was a similar situation at 318 Pine Street where a parking lot for 5 cars was required, but due to the historic zoning, you can't pave more than 10%. And so the 10% pavement was used, and the remainder was done in the grass pavers, which provides parking for 5 cars. And it is more expensive than just standard concrete, but it might be something that may be a favorable compromise that retains some of the green space, but still gives you a driving surface.
we would check into it, and like I said, we're willing to do it if it comes into the budget. And
Yeah, well, that's always part of it. But, well, thank you.
Excuse me, Mr. Housefield.
Yeah. I can't speak for traffic engineering, but I think they're going to discourage a driveway so close to the corner, the apron that we're discussing where we want to reduce the size and you'd like to leave it as large as possible. I would imagine making it thinner or more narrow and moving it farther away from the corner, which would be accomplished by if you go to 10 feet from 18 feet, may buy you some latitude with them if you can get it farther away from the corner. I think it might be a middle ground. Well, with us as a request, but again, like I can't speak for traffic engineering, but it seems like that would be a concern of theirs.
like I said, I can do this, that's not a problem, but the biggest issue I have here is the parking, that people park right under the stop sign. I mean, it's if there's a driveway, they cannot, I'm not going to be using it.
I understand your
It's just,
concern.
you have to understand the dilemma that we have for parking in that area.
I understand. I went to school at UK, and I'm familiar with the bump and nudge parking methods. But I don't know. It seems like it would be a yellowed out curb anyways, the distance between your driveway and this corner. And again, I can't speak for traffic engineering, but it's not a big distance. And if you're keeping, in the suggestion from the staff, you're keeping the distance, the other side, at the same point, whether it's from the point farthest away from the corner and it comes 10 feet towards the corner or comes 18 feet towards the corner, you're still going to have the nearest spot they could park on the street would be farther away from the corner. So it's going to be the same problem at that end or edge of the apron either way.
Martin,
Is my imagination.
Can we post a drawing so
Sure.
we can? As you can see on the lower right hand, we have that buffer zone that's it's called 3 feet of, I cannot read that from here. But if we move everything toward the neighbor's property, we won't have enough room to be getting in and getting out. That's the area that we're talking about. Do you need me pointed on there?
Could we get this gentleman a pointer so we can understand what he's trying to?
Point it.
Thank you.
No,
A laser pointer.
I can point it from here. This is the area that we made the buffer of for the new bush area, and this is the questionable distance that we're talking about from here to here. If we move this in this direction, I don't think it gives us enough room to back the car out and get out of the area.
The question is not, you actually need 10 feet here to get out. This car would swing back here and come out this way. That's what staff was recommending. And this existing apron here would be removed and return to green space. So this car would swing back here. Instead of having a sharp 90-degree turn here, this area here would kind of feel paved like that, or return to green, or stay green space.
I think it's going to be tight, but we can try.
And to clarify, it is one-way traffic. You're not ever going to have cars coming in and out of that apron.
We would access from Pine Street and exit from Plunkett.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Housefield. Mr. Billings?
I have a couple of questions. First is, you were here in 2001 for COA, is that correct?
Sure.
And you had, at that time, did you increase the size of the parking area in the rear of the property
No, we had 5 parking,
at that time?
yes.
What's the reason for wanting to increase it at this time?
Well, according to the building inspection, which we kind of argue with them for a long time, any new addition you put on the building has to have a handicap. Even though the argument's not there, but it's a private use, and under Title III Act, a federal mandate, if it's a private use, you do not have to have a handicap ramp. But what the building inspection is saying, that in the future, if you sell it, we cannot enforce the use of the building.
What's the use now?
It's a P1 use. It's a, we have our, I'm a structural engineer, and then we have a apartment upstairs on the upper level. So by adding the handicap parking, we lose a parking actually because of the area that's required for the handicap. And then we need to add one more.
So you're trying to keep your original 5 and then make accommodations for the 6th handicap spot?
Yes.
Okay. I guess I'm troubled that you're losing so much green space in this plan. I can't tell you the number of times I have seen in historic properties similar situations where there's a slow encroachment upon the green space to expand parking time and time again. And the residual effect over time is that very little green space is left because of either asphalt or pure concrete or some type of paving material. Considering what you're looking to do, I'm not in favor of allowing more green space to be taken up unless an alternative is looked at, either permeable pavers or grassy pavers. There's a variety of products that can be used that essentially allows parking but preserves grass or some type of undergrowth, as well as prevents rainwater runoff and things like that. They are more expensive, as Mr. Maggers pointed out, but they provide a very good balance between preserving the green space that historic properties have and not just removing those to allow for more parking. And I understand as a property owner, there's a balance between what building inspection tells you have to do to try to meet code, and then our job, which is to preserve the historical integrity of the buildings, which is why I think those are a great alternative, because it tries to meet both in the middle. The unfortunate side effect is they are more expensive for a project. Unfortunately, that's the reality of older homes, is that everything you do is more expensive than a new build.
Well, the green pavers that you're talking about, the grassy area, that's probably the better alternative for what you want, because the previous paver is not going to give you any green space. It just creates a drainage area. I mean, drainage area can be accomplished by gravel, but we're not going to use gravel. So the only alternative that you're asking me here to preserve the green space is to use the green pavers, which is, we look into it, don't get me wrong. I mean,
Well, there's a couple different type of green pavers you can use. There's an actual plastic underlayment you can do and then lay sod on top. There's the concrete ones that have sort of the diamond shape inside that grass grows. I mean, there's a number of different products that can accomplish the same effect. My thoughts are that I would not be in favor of expanding the square footage of the existing concrete, that any additional space would have to be accomplished by using some type of grassy paver material, although you may be able to change the layout of the current concrete to do that, such that perhaps the parking area is actually those grassy, and then the actual driveway section could be concrete. Because I think you want to shift that sort of more southeast on the lot towards the Pine Street. Is that correct?
Yes.
That may be a good way to balance that.
Yeah. I think we can do that. We can accomplish for what you need, and it's not a great deal of area that we're trying to take away from the green space. So you probably can accomplish that, but I don't think the pervious paver is going to be the answer to what you're looking for. But we look into it.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Sumner?
I do think we're talking about a lot of things here that traffic needs to address that's out of our ability to comment on. Would you explain to me the 18-foot wide apron? It seems like kind of an erroneous width. Like it's not wide enough for two, but it's too wide for one. How did you come to the 18-foot?
Well, if you look at the diagram that we had, we tried to enclose the area between the stop sign and the driveway.
We have that diagram in front of us.
I'm sorry?
We have that diagram in front of us.
If it's in the lower left corner, I guess, if you want it. We tried to, because this area right in the lower right-hand corner right now, we see about 3 bushes in the corner.
They would like for you to use this corner up
Over there,
here.
okay.
Yeah.
This is
Underneath, yeah, this thing.
This is the area right here. So this is where most everybody park. And by moving it over, that's going to give them extra parking here. Like I said, I don't have any problem with it, and if that's what needs to be done, then we do it.
And I'm speaking of the one on Pine Street. I apologize. The apron on Pine Street.
The Pine Street right now is
Because you initially requested that it be 25 feet.
Let me.
The
let me
recommendation is
see
that it
the-
be made
see
18.
the original drawing here.
That still shows it fine.
this side
That's the
right
one.
here.
Yeah,
That's
that
the one.
apron.
That's the one. This is how the apron was originally, there was a car parked here,
Right.
and then the 10-foot for the driving aisle, and then over here, the 10-foot driving aisle, and then with parking here, this wound up 18 feet also.
Okay.
But it was 10-foot was for the driving aisle and 8 feet for a car to park.
Ms. Sumner, I think if it's possible to do it with 18, we will do it with 18. I don't have any problem with that.
It just seemed like an odd number because it doesn't really accomplish any kind of two-way traffic, and you don't desire two-way traffic. For me, getting determination from traffic on the Plunkett access is critical to how this whole thing works. I do agree with my fellow board members that the pavement needs to be investigated, and pervious concrete pavement will not accomplish our goal. It needs to be the concrete pavers like what is at Henry Clay Estate, for example.
I agree with you.
I think you've
yes.
seen those.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sumner. Let's see if anyone in the audience has any comments or questions regarding this case. Okay. Don't hear any. Let's see if
Did you already read the email into the record?
I didn't read it verbatim.
You said, okay.
Yeah.
Just want to make sure.
Certainly entertain a motion.
I would like to suggest that maybe this, and I hate to hold you up, but this be tabled until you can find out from traffic engineering about the relocation of the apron and also investigate the possible use of alternative paving systems. I know that will hold you up a little bit, but I think that those things are kind of hanging out there, and I don't know if we could really make a decision that, you know, would be what you want to hear at this point. So if that's acceptable to you and to the board, I would like to make a motion that this project be, that it would be postponed or tabled.
Continued?
Continued, thank you. None of those. Continued until the next meeting on
June 10th.
June 10th.
Is that agreeable? Sure. Okay.
Was that in the form
Yeah,
of a motion?
that's my motion.
I will second that motion.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Magrish, and thank you, Ms. Sumner. Is there any discussion of the motion?
I like this motion because it gives us a chance to see what the possibilities really are for the Plunkett apron. I think it's going to give you more information to make the final decision, and it's going to help us help you, I think.
Well, let me just bring a point up. We had problem with the green space. Believe me, we brought this up to the building inspection. They didn't have any problem with taking the green space out because that was the first question we brought up. We taking green space. Based on their calculation, we do have enough green space. So that's where we went. We've been going around with this for about 8 months. So.
That's a situation where the different ordinances level of what they're charged with enforcing, one may be more restrictive than the other. In this instance, on the subject of green space, the H1 overlay process is the more restrictive of the two, but it would take precedence in the sense of the end product.
I would just say, actually, building inspection does have been an issue with the green space towards Plunkett.
Sure.
That when Bob Carpenter, the building inspection, I reviewed the plan, that was something that he was. But there is some issues with building inspection, the green space on the Plunkett Street side, and because of the landscape buffer that is required, so that they'll have to play around with.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Any more discussion of the motion?
I think this allows you to engage with building inspection to go back to them with what you've heard here tonight without having a definitive decision from us, to work with them for a plan that you can then come back, hopefully from both sides, to get it. And I understand your frustration that unfortunately the
No, I'm not frustrated, believe
well,
me.
Our process could be more integrated for everyone, because I think it takes longer for both staff and the board and building inspection than what everyone would like, but hopefully the goal is that at the end of the day, we've done our job in protecting the historical integrity of the neighborhood and the structure in the building, as well as allow the property owner to do what they want to as much as possible with the land.
Believe me, that's our goal too, to protect the historic property, and that's everybody that knows when I worked on the house. That was our main goal to do.
Yeah, the work you've done in the house is wonderful. I mean, I've passed by many times, and it's great.
And if you want, when you're having your meeting with building inspection, if you'd like to let the staff know when that is, if your choice, but we would be glad to join them and you, so that everybody can be on the same page.
I would probably call Amelia and have everybody involved.
We'll be glad to be party to that, so everybody can talk about everything all at once.
Excellent. Okay, any more discussion? Okay, just to restate the motion, the motion's to continue the hearing until the 10th of June, which is the next meeting. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye, please. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much. Okay. The next case is in the Woodward Heights Historic District at 628 West High Street. The scope of the work is to demolish walls, deck, and steps, and then to construct additions, porch, and deck. Is that applicant present?
My name's Lynn Pettigill. I live at 347 South Upper.
Have you had a chance to read the staff's findings and recommendations?
The homeowners are here, and yes, we have read through them. There is one thing we'd like to try to clarify, though.
Okay.
And it's in regard to the windows, and in particular, one window.
Well, maybe we'll have staff do a quick overview, and then we'll focus our
That's
discussion
fine.
in on that window if
Thank
you'd
you.
entertain that. Thank you very much.
It's an existing window that they'd like to reuse because they just replaced all the windows.
Okay. Okay.
This is property at 628 West High. The proposed work is at the rear of the structure. An earlier owner of this property received a COA in '98 to demolish the existing rear additions and construct a 1.5-story gabled rear addition that included kitchen, passageway to a southeast bedroom, stairway to a second-floor living room, and a large rear 1-story hexagonal-shaped sunroom with openings off the kitchen area. The sunroom was not constructed, and thus the rear wall of the kitchen became the existing rear wall of the addition and includes windows, door, deck, and steps, which you see there. The siding was to be a composite 6-inch reveal clapboard. However, the walls were finished in stucco. The new owner at this time is requesting that the board grant a COA to demolish the east and west walls of the rear addition, construct a 1-story low-hip roof rear additions at either end of the existing rear addition, construct a 1.5-story gable roof porch with gable window at the rear of the structure, and construct a rear deck and steps. Randy, could we see maybe the rear elevation? The new owner at this time, the proposed additions are to have foundation walls of concrete block, having a thin brick veneer. The walls of the wood frame addition would be finished with either a thin brick veneer or a hardy plank clapboard siding. The roof system at the wings additions are to be of single-ply rubber membrane, and the gable roof is to be covered with dimensional asphalt shingles. The door and windows of the addition would be a multi-plane design and aluminum-clad construction. The porch floors are to be 8-inch square. The porch columns are to be 8-inch square treated pine wrapped with redwood. The deck is to be 6-inch square treated wood wrapped with redwood. The wood railing systems have 2-inch square pickets spaced 4 inches apart. Infill between the posts beneath the rear is a deck flooring is shown as small opening lattice. The floor of the porch and deck is noted to be 1-inch by 4-inch decking of treated yellow pine. The proposed construction of the steps was not known at the time of this writing. No walkway has been indicated. We've listed the guidelines for your reference. I guess if you're mainly concerned about the windows, the proposed use of the findings, the proposed use of multi-pane glazing of the addition's windows and door is found to give the building an imitation historic appearance, which is not in accordance with guideline 2B1K. A more appropriate window design would be a 1/1, and door design would be full light. Reference the use of thin brick veneer. Staff finds the use of that of same in addition to these historic structures inappropriate, not in accordance with the guidelines 2B1J that states materials should be in scale to the building on which they are located, should be compatible with materials on adjacent surrounding buildings. So staff recommendations were the soffit width of the new addition is greater than 12 inches, the inset of the addition, if the soffit width is greater than 12 inches, the inset of the addition at the wall of the historic structure is to be that larger number. The windows of the addition to be 1/1 design, door to be a full light design in lieu of multi-pane design. The walls of the addition to be brick, if they are to be brick veneer, to be full 4 inches in width. Rubber membrane roof area used to be a very low hip design and not shed design, which was not clear on the drawings. All exposed wood of the deck porch area to be painted or else opaque stain except for deck and porch flooring and stair treads, and all final drawings, details of clarification be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to the issue of the COA.
Thank you, Mr. Ginocchio.
You're welcome.
Ms. Pedigo, if you'd like to come back up.
Sorry to make you do that. My clients have decided, since there's going to need to be another window and adjacent to the one that they wanted to reuse, which is in their new closet instead of the bedroom, that they don't care. They'll do the 1/1.
Excellent. Well, let's see if anyone has any comments.
The overhangs are not more than 12 inches.
Anyone have any comments or questions for the applicant?
Well, I don't mean to stir up trouble if everybody's agreeable to the staff recommendations, but I did have a question concerning the windows. I didn't know before this presentation and before we saw the photographs that there are multi-pane windows in the current construction of the house.
Yes.
And I guess this is a question more for the staff than you. Wouldn't the use of new windows with the multi-pane design, we've actually asked people before to use windows of divided light nature to tie back to the neighborhood that they're in. I'm wondering if this isn't an opportunity not to use fake divided lights or anything of that nature, but to make reference to the original construction of the house. Is that something we could argue?
Within the guidelines, the intent on new additions would be to have it, be distinguishable from the historic mass. This is a early 1800s house,
Right.
The main mass, and the divided lights are part of its evolution. So I think in terms of the interpretation of the guidelines, that going with something that is more clean-lined and noticeably, still scale-wise and material-wise appropriate, but noticeably not mimicking the main house is an appropriate response in terms of handling the window openings.
Okay. I could.
And we are going to do hardy plank, so then everything will be framed out on the rear where the windows are. So it's going to give it a little bit of meat to it instead of it just being, single pane glass and no edging.
Mr. Magrish?
Is all of the new construction now going to be hardy plank? There's no brick?
We're not going to do brick.
Okay, so I just had, in your plan, it sort of looked like the brick wall came.
They had
and it
looked at the
stopped.
brick. They had looked at the brick system because this is partially an insurance thing regarding the stucco that's on the rear of the house.
Right.
And it was a 2-inch thick system. When staff's recommendation said that it should be a 4-inch in width. I mean, it was either a brick veneer or hardy plank, so we were open to either.
Okay, so you're just going to go with the hardy plank for the whole thing?
That's my suggestion.
Okay, because if you are going to use some kind of brick veneer, according to your plan, it just stops, like, I don't know, about 6 inches to the right of the first window on the right-hand wing. There's no line shown on the elevation, but it would show there.
Because at that point, we were going for either brick or hardy
Right.
plank, so.
If you decide to go with brick, which according to the guidelines, you need to stop it before that point. It needs to be in line with the sort of the pedimented structure.
Pardon me, I didn't hear you.
It needs to be in line, the stopping point for the brick needs to be in line with the central pediment, and not extend this sort of awkward, was it like 6 feet
I'm
beyond?
confused.
You're it's going to be clapboard.
Yes.
Okay, so
Wondering about.
she's not going to
Yeah, I
do,
mean,
she's not doing brick.
Okay, but if you're not, then it's a
Well, because
moot
we
point.
would have had to pour a whole new footer,
Right.
and it's not essential.
Okay, well, that's fine. I just, if you were, that was a concern, because that was a very awkward
Yeah.
detail that wasn't shown.
So, but he does make me think of a question. The whole rear facade is going to get this new, even the parts of the existing building that will remain on the rear facade will also get the new hardy.
Anything that protrudes from the historic building will have hardy plank. Where the stucco existed.
But there is a, just to clarify, I mean, I just want to make sure we all agree and I understand your drawings. There is a portion of the existing house that will remain exposed on the rear facade of this project once you're done with your additions.
It is the section where the stairwell is to the second floor, and it will not, we'll be taking everything off of that and extending it out.
That answers my question. Thank you.
So the brick of the existing structure will be shown in
It's not.
that one little area?
It's stucco.
Oh, that is all part of the
That's that
previous
little,
addition?
that little weird side thing on
Okay,
there
I see.
existing.
Thank you.
We're getting rid of all that.
Okay, very good.
Ms. Sumner? Mr. Billings?
I'm a little confused about the status of the windows and doors, probably because I've gotten caught up on understanding stucco or brick, which I think I have clear now. With respect to the new windows and doors, you are in agreement to use the 1/1? Okay, that's what I just wanted to make sure. I don't have any questions about that then.
Would anyone, excuse me, would anyone in the audience like to speak to this case this evening? Seeing no one coming forward, would certainly entertain a motion on this, please.
Well, in reference to case, what is this, 093000628-J at 628 West High Street, I would like to make a motion that the application be approved as submitted with the conditions that were 1 through 6 that were outlined by the staff, and also the condition that the entire new construction area be clad in hardy plank.
Thank you, Mr. Magris. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thank you both. Any discussion of the motion?
Does the applicant have any questions about that? Okay, good.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. The next case is in the Aylesford Historic District. The scope of the work is to demolish additions and construct addition. Is that applicant present?
Bob Marshall, 135 Clay Avenue.
Good evening, sir. Staff has recommended that we table the case to work out further resolution regarding material choices. Is that something you'd be willing to entertain, or would you like to talk about this evening?
First question, you mentioned demolition. There was no demolition.
Okay.
Everything was the existing slab and all the concrete, the sidewalk has always been existing.
Okay.
We couldn't go ahead and discuss the we put the picture up, please.
Okay. Well, we'll have the, if you're okay with it, we'll have the staff run through the presentation quickly, and then we'll, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, excellent. We'll be right back with you.
This is the property at 135 Clay Avenue. This is just at the corner of Clay and Central Avenue. This is looking on the sort of northeast or west side of the property. And this is going to, oh, wrong way. This is going along Central Avenue. This is, of course, a two-story brick building with an addition. And then, as you can see in the foreground, this is the addition that was started. Here's the existing background, and this was one of the times the office stopped it. The siding was put up in white, and it's just white vinyl siding. And this sort of gives you a lay of the land here. Here again is another view. Again, this is a view of the addition, and this is put upon a concrete block or concrete patio area. Preservation Office received notice from Building Inspection that work was going on at this address. The staff stopped by and formally notified the contractors to stop construction prior to, because they needed a certificate of appropriateness that would be approved by the BOAR to have an addition onto a rear of a building be constructed. And then the siding was put up later that afternoon, and then subsequently the staff actually did talk with the owner, and he was not aware that he was in the historic district, and staff made him aware of that and asked that he not continue the work, and so the work is sort of stopped like this, except he's painted the back to match the building. Here again is inside. He is wanting to put openings. There'll be a doorway, which you see here, and then he's put it's a window that you saw on the other side, and then a window in the rear. And again, he's proposing to use this as a storage facility, but because it is on the back of the building, it does actually count as an addition and not necessarily a storage facility. He is not going to be bringing it out or not putting drywall or anything like that. He's actually going to use it for storage, I believe was mentioned, and just put shelving and pegboard and that kind of thing. Here's another view. And this is sitting on top of a concrete patio area. And because this does count as an addition, he will have to figure out some way to put a proper footer in to get a permit from building inspection. And again, it had been painted, so as it is now, it is painted with the color, the teal color, to match the building. The material is vinyl siding, and the windows are vinyl with vinyl surrounds, and all of this is, as the owner says, to match the existing condition of the existing condition of the existing addition that's there now. So the measurements are approximately 13 and a half by 9 and a half by 10 and a half, and guidelines are included for your reference. The proposal to approve the half-built shed addition requires further discussion. The construction of an addition onto this 2.5-story brick structure with an already framed addition is within the guidelines. Guidelines 2A, 4A, 2B, 1A, and 3.6A state additions are appropriately located at the rear buildings, and shape and variations of rectangular shape square forms are mostly appropriate for primary buildings in Lexington Historic Districts. However, the material choices and the windows and siding being of vinyl that have already been installed after work was stopped are not within the guidelines nor appropriate for the structure. Guidelines 2B1J states, material and material color texture, pattern, and construction technique help define building character and scale. Materials are incorporated into parts of building but may vary from building to building. Installation materials that give a building an imitation historic appearance are not allowed. Materials should be in scale to the building in which they are located and should be compatible with materials on adjacent surrounding buildings. In areas where strong continuity of materials texture, material color is a factor, and the continued use of the materials is strongly recommended. Frame structures, if new construction of frame, the preferred exterior material is a horizontal wood siding with a minimum of 4 inches, maximum of 6 inches in width, and the use of smooth cementous board siding is acceptable as long as it meets these size requirements. Vinyl siding is not allowed. Windows, the use of wood or ionized, baked, and enamel aluminum windows is appropriate. Vinyl windows are not allowed, and the use of plastic or snap-in buttons window pane dividers is not permitted. The vinyl windows and siding are not within the guidelines. Staff recommends tabling the case in order for the applicant to work out further resolution regarding material choices. Again, staff recommends tabling this case to work out the resolution of material choices. There's been 3 letters submitted for this application that you all have received, one within the packet, 2 just as of today.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Sir, if you'd like to come back forward.
A minute ago when I was up here, I thought you was going to table and tell me come back next week. That's why, or next month or something. Go ahead.
Well, certainly we could do that, but if you'd like to talk about the case,
Yes. I would.
we'll certainly do that.
Thank you.
Please fill us in on any information you'd like to give us. And then
I think you have it pretty much. I went on and painted it because I just didn't want to be sitting there ugly for a couple months or whatever.
let's see if the board has any comments or questions for you.
Thank you.
Ms. Sumner?
I don't have a question at this time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. Hosfield?
Well, I guess my question for you, do you have any questions with why or how the staff has made all of the recommendations that they have?
I can understand it generally. I guess my thought was the overriding factor would be matching the existing house where it would blend in totally, because the same type of siding's on there. It's got the exact same wood grain and everything. And the windows are, same place that the main house has, where they came from.
But you didn't have any trouble understanding what was referenced by the staff as far as their guidelines and their preferences in particular for vinyl windows. It's pretty clear. Just making. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all I had. Just
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hosfield. Mr. Billings?
How old is the addition that you're referring to?
the previous edition.
It was there in 1977.
When you purchased the property?
Yes.
Okay. And they had vinyl clad windows on at that time?
No, I would say about 10 years ago.
You replaced them with vinyl?
Yes.
Okay.
Somewhere through there.
Okay. What were they beforehand?
Just wood.
Aluminum or wood?
would, yeah, would, I would think.
Okay. Have you ever sought a COA for this property before?
Yes. We built a carriage house back in 1990.
Is that the two-story garage with the
Yes,
apartment above
mhm.
it? Okay. Do you understand that vinyl's not allowed under the guidelines?
Right.
It's not even a should not, it's a shall not use vinyl? Okay. Because that's one of the things that, with the guidelines, there are some areas that are gray that say should not. There's some that say shall not, which is a binding, we can't allow vinyl. It's not even something we're allowed to consider under the guidelines. While there's other areas that may give us area to move in, this is one of the things that we don't have authority to do anything other. It's just not permitted at all under the guidelines that were adopted by the board and passed by council earlier this year.
Yeah, after I read through this, I see that.
Would you be in agreement to continuing this to try to work with staff on an appropriate material then?
If we can do it tonight.
We would not be able to do it tonight. We would continue it for 2 weeks.
So what I hear
Or
from
until-
you, to put hardy board on the outside, correct? And if I agree to hardy board, I would still have to come back again?
Well, isn't there still an issue with the building department about a footing?
I've taken care of all that.
Okay, has that been documented?
No, I have to
No.
go here before I can go there.
Okay. 'Cause the requirements that they have for a safe and proper structure, we need to make sure that's in place too before
Right.
we worry about how it's clad.
Okay, I was under the impression this has to be done first, and I have everything taken care of, ready to go to the building inspector after we're through here.
That's true. I mean, you weren't incorrectly advised, but I just wondered what the status was of working out a footing.
I have an engineer and I have a floor plan how to do that.
Are you agreeable then to hardy board or cementous board? Okay.
Yes, yes. Yes, that's what I was trying to say a minute ago.
Okay.
Yes,
that's
I
what-
like that.
No, it seems
Yes.
you're in agreement with that.
Yes, hardy board, yes.
Mr. Magrish?
When you started this project, you didn't realize that you needed a COA? Is that correct?
Yes, I did. I was told this was not in historic when I started.
Yet you had to get a COA for your garage.
Right.
Why was that?
Hate to put my wife on the spot, she just didn't do it.
Okay. Well, that can happen.
Yeah.
That's totally understandable. My feeling is that unless your engineer has tested this slab, they may make you actually put in a footing, which means you're going to have to take what you've done so far down. I mean,
He's worked all this out, and he's got it scaled out and everything else. Do we need to go over the footer plan here, or is that the building inspection?
well, what I'm getting
Building
at
permit.
is I've actually had a similar project where they wanted to build on an existing concrete slab that had been used as a terrace. And the building...
I'd be glad to go over how it's going to be done then, if you like, through the engineer.
Well, what I'm getting at is they may require some additional foundation work.
That is correct.
If you have to do that anyway, you may have to take down what you put in. And at that point, I think that then you need to come back up with a design that is appropriate.
At this point, that would be...
How about the same design? As long as I meet the footer requirement of the building inspector. I have all that worked out, I have the plans and everything else.
Before any certificate of appropriateness could be issued, final plans would have to be turned in to the staff for review, and we could certainly add a condition to the COA that final documentation be provided to staff prior to the issuance of the COA. And if any other LFUCG agencies require changes to those plans, staff would review those changes. And if staff's comfortable with them, staff could go ahead and issue the COA. If not, then it would require coming back to us.
Well, one of the things, I'm just saying if they should make you or require you to do some additional foundation work,
That is correct. I will be doing
then the material that the foundation is made out of, i.e. concrete block or poured concrete or whatever, falls into the design of the addition, which then would have to be approved by this board. So we kind of need to know what you're doing.
I understand now.
And then we can go from there. So
The outside four corners, they're going to be dug down and footer put in on a post to come up, and then there'll be a 2x12 double header going all the way around, tying into the existing house.
okay, so it would just have the whatever the siding is would go right down to the ground then?
Yes.
Okay.
You know, my goal is for it to look nice.
No, I appreciate
No,
that, and everything else you've done is very nice.
So that's, I'm trying to understand, that's just the procedure here too,
Right.
And at this point too, I personally would have a hard time approving or making a motion to approve for anything to go forward just based on the drawings and information we have now. We don't know, I don't know what the roof is going to be like. I can imagine,
I submitted
but
a plan on it.
Well, I had those drawings, but it doesn't show me the information on the roof or elevations on how it intends to tie into the building. I believe I see the intent, but
Right.
and I believe the staff would need something that documents what you intend to build as far as a future building goes. So I don't know.
Let me ask you another question, maybe, to help me out. What would I need to do for a freestanding building? If I go out and buy a building?
Submit another application.
Okay, and then do the buildings that you buy and sell on your lot, are they approved or?
You mean like one of the freestanding buildings,
sir.
prefab buildings you buy at Lowe's or
Right.
somewhere like that? Just to be able to be installed? I don't know what the staff would say.
There have been a very few styles of those that are out on the market that have a gable roof and some features that make them come within the guidelines. Many of the ones on the market don't.
Right. Do you have a list
But
of the
there
ones
are a
that meet
few.
the guidelines?
We could delve into the ones that have been approved and show you what they were. But it depends on a property-by-property basis, what's the space available and what's the character of the property and all that, what would be appropriate to go there. We would need the specifications of whatever unit you selected to pursue, and a site plan showing where it would be placed and so forth. On any proposal on this, I think what you're hearing the board saying, we need elevation drawings, whether it's the addition or a freestanding. We need all the four sides, or in this instance, 3 sides, and a rear elevation reflecting how it ties into the existing structure. So I think that's what the board's seeking in their comment, if I may be so bold as to interpret some of what y'all are saying, is that they need drawings that are to scale and actually show, as if you haven't built, what are you proposing as the end product, and how are you going to accomplish it to
I
scale.
think I'll just stop by, and if you could give me the storage buildings that's approved, and I'll just have a freestanding storage building.
I will be glad to do that with the caveat, with you understanding that it doesn't inherently say that it would be approved on your property.
Right.
It would be that they had been approved in other situations, and to give you some idea, but it's not therefore, if you pick one of these, you're good to go, because that's not,
It also
the
has-
process is charged with reviewing each instance and what's
Well, it
involved.
also is where it's situated on the site is also taken into account.
It's highly visible from Central Avenue. So that is going to be an issue, I believe. But I understand the urgency and where you're hoping we can give you some action to move forward with this evening. And what I'm afraid to tell you is that I don't think we can this evening, based on the documentation that we have. It sounds like it's something that'll end up having to, being tabled is a good option for you at this moment, so that it can be.
It's gotten a
developed
lot
or
more
redeveloped.
complicated than I can imagine.
There is a little bit to it, but I think, we're on your side. We want the end product to be a nice addition to your home and something that fits in with the guidelines for the historic district.
And everything else you've done is very nice. I mean, your house is really lovely, so I imagine that what you'll come up
Please
with will
don't
be
send
just
my
fine.
wife a citation for this or anything.
No.
She was very upset.
Okay, let's see if anyone in the audience has any comments or questions regarding this case. Don't hear any. Anyone on the board have any more comments or questions? Okay, certainly entertain a motion, please.
Would you like just to withdraw your application tonight and then come back to us with what you want to do with either the existing building with the additional drawings we've asked for, or with the second application for a freestanding building that you've
I'd
discussed?
like to table this because I think that, and stay in the process.
Okay, because if you're talking about a separate building, that's a different application than what you have before us tonight.
I'd like to table this and get back to
To consider if whether you
Yes,
still want to use this design or not? Okay, so would you be agreeable to just continue it then until the June 10th meeting?
And it is very likely that if you decide to change what you're wanting to do, and if you meet with staff and you meet the guidelines, you may not have to wait a full 2 weeks to come back to us. So, but that there are mechanisms in place to get you moving. He still
May I
has to come back?
say a clarification? The staff's not empowered to give an approval permit for new construction.
Correct, but if he,
So it would
okay.
need to come to the board.
I apologize. 2 weeks.
Action.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 04150-135 at 135 Clay Avenue, I would move that we continue this until the June 10th, 2009 BOAR meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you both. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Oppose.
Motion carries. Sir, thank you very much. Okay. Let's see. The next case this evening is in the South Ashland Historic District at 217 South Ashland Avenue. The scope of the work is to replace all windows. Is that applicant present?
Yes, sir. Trevor Wells, 217 South Ashland. I'm either the applicant or her spousal representative. I don't know whether I signed the thing or not, but
That's okay.
and we're not on the same page, I guess. I think it's a factual, definitional difference, but they'll need to go through the overview. So I'll sit down and let that happen.
Excellent. Thank you very much, sir. Staff, if you would, please.
This is the property at 217 South Ashland. And the owner, or one of the owners anyway, I met with last year, and there was work that went before the board and was approved, and one was a sidewalk and then some site work in the rear of the structure as well. And there was a discussion at that time regarding the windows. The applicant wanted to know what the process was to replace the windows. We discussed it briefly, and then I think there was not very much discussion after that. Earlier this year, the applicant sent me an email suggesting that she'd like to revisit this topic, and at this time she was requesting to replace the windows. And just sort of to give you a condition, this is sort of the view of the windows. There are many on this site. This is one of the front windows. Here's sort of the existing condition of the windows. Here's the side view. Sort of a closer in view of the windows. Last year, the applicant did discuss the concern with energy efficiency and the fact that she didn't like the storm windows. And then she did mention this year in an email that was sent that she is concerned about the safety of single-pane windows for the children. Here again is the windows. Oops. There's a mixture of multi-pane and 1/1 windows and for the most part, the windows seem to be in good condition. There is a huge amount of painting issues, and since the windows have been, many of them have been painted shut. Oops, sorry, a little fast. Her proposal is to replace the windows with the multi-pane windows to match, and there is a spec sheet that has been included in your application, or in her application, in the staff report, detailing her plan, or guidelines are included for your reference. The proposal to replace the single pane glass glazing of historic wood windows requires discussion. Staff have visited the site to inspect the condition of the existing windows and found the windows to be proposed are to be very original and in very good condition. Some maintenance issues do require attention, including but not limited to loosening the windows since they've been painted shut, also refurbishing the windows by removing some of the alligating paint and repainting them, and also staff suggests weather stripping that can be applied to windows by the replacement of the sash cords with vinyl jam liners, or either re-roping of existing weight or spring balance systems installed. Staff finds the proposal not within the guidelines and inappropriate for this house. The design guidelines regarding windows first state the first action is to repair the original windows whenever possible. Then repair is not an option. Only after these actions can be explored is replacement an option. Guidelines 124B states windows should be repaired rather than replaced. If the review process determines the replacement is necessary due to severe deterioration, the replacement should be in kind to match the original in size, material, and design. The installation of new wood windows to match the original design is recommended, and the installation of baked enamel or ionized aluminum-clad windows, not totally of aluminum construction, may be considered. If aluminum-clad windows are applied, they should match historic wood windows closely as possible. And their dimensions, profiles, depths, buttons, and trim and surrounding and vinyl or vinyl-clad windows are not allowed. Staff researched several organizations regarding windows and children's safety issues, including National Safety Council, Home Safety Council, U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission, and Cincinnati's Children's Hospital. None of these mentioned the danger of only single-pane windows. However, they did discuss problems with children potentially falling out of windows that are open or being caught up in curtain or window blind pull cords. All council and organizations mention the importance of window guards to prevent children from falling out of windows, or in addition, they make suggestions to move furniture away from windows so children cannot climb onto the furniture and fall through the windows. Other preventive measures to explore that are not listed by the organizations are safety glass, or safety interior storm windows, or replacing the glazing on the lower sash with the safety glass. The company 3M makes a film that can cover windows and strengthen the glass, and according to the specification, the film strengthens glass, making the system much stronger. Also, they hold in the glass shards of glass in place if they break. Another measure is the interior storm window using safety glass, and the interior storm windows would add a layer of insulation, also help with the safety issues. And lastly, the lower sashes can be reglazed with a tempered glass to help with safety issues. And recommendations, staff recommends disapproval as submitted. And for applicants here.
Thank you, Ms. Armstrong. Sir, I thank you for your patience this evening, and the floor is yours.
As I understand it, if replacement was appropriate, there's no objection to the type of windows my wife has selected. and counting the number of windows during those pictures, my heart started beating fast, thinking about having to pay for them in the event that you all approve the certificate. I guess what we think we have is sort of a factual disagreement about whether repair is possible. And I don't doubt Ms. Armstrong's sincerity and her belief that they can be repaired. We've consulted with contractors and design professionals, people who would have gotten the job of repairing it, had they said they could do it, and their answer was, we don't think we can fix these, which is why we're at this point in the process. And for us, it's primarily a safety issue. And we have 2 kids, 2 years and 4 months, and a 9-month-old, or almost 9-month-old. Falls from windows are definitely issues, and so are tangled up in cords, but those appear to be non-germane to our inquiry here, and that is windows have to open. Ours don't at all, and they are completely non-functional for that ventilation purpose, which is a purpose of windows. And the safety documentation that was attached to the staff recommendation says things along the lines of you must be able to open windows to escape in an emergency. And at 217 South Ashland, we currently lack what the National Safety Council refers to as a secondary means of escape from a burning home. Now, an interior, was it an interior storm window? Isn't going to help that situation, obviously. I think maybe we used the wrong term, or we phrased something poorly, and that might have sent us in the wrong direction when we said that we were concerned about single pane glass. And probably what we should have said is that we are concerned about World War I era non-safety glass, which is what we're talking about. And these are windows that wouldn't be to code now. They're 12 to 18 inches off the ground, and we have a 2-year-old that bounces off them periodically at sort of a frenetic 2-year-old speed, which is our concern. And there's no serious debate that I think, whether you Google it or look at some reputable peer-reviewed journal, that old World War I era non-shatterproof windows present a safety risk. So I guess from our standpoint, we think that in order for a window to be functional, to repair to be functional, it has to be able to open and close when we want it to open and close. And that would mean that the rope function would have to be fixable, which is, or replaceable with the alternative she discussed. And what we're hearing from our people is that cannot be done. Now, there may be some fix for some of the other solutions. I mean, I guess we could pimp our house like it's an El Dorado and put this film on the front of it and tint our windows or whatever. But that doesn't solve the open and shut problem, which seems to be sort of the core. Now, I mean, that's an underlying factual dispute. Can it be fixed? She believes it can. The people we've talked to say it can't. So that's why we've gone through the process, and that's why we're here.
Thank you very much. Let's see if any of the board members have any comments or questions for you. Mr. Billings? Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Sumner?
I do have 2 questions.
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Have you yourself, or have you had anyone attempt to strip the paint off of the sash?
No. Okay. I mean, and I believe that they could open.
Okay. That was just a straight, so no. And the folks that you've consulted with in seeing if the windows are repairable, were they restoration folks, or were they contractors? Or
one of them, and I wish I could give you a better answer than this. I'm here because it's feeding and bath time, and luckily I'm going to miss all of bath time, it looks like. But so I can't give you as good a factual answer as I would like. Okay. There were before we purchased the home, there were some repairs done on the place. I can't come up with the name of the firm. I think the guy's name is Chris. C and something did the work. So there was some historic renovation done on the interior of the home, and that's who we consulted with.
So they
that's
were
who provided that
contractors
answer.
that were experienced in this type of restorative work.
I was not personally
That would
present
be
for the
critical.
conversation, but that is my understanding.
Okay.
They had done historic preservation work, and that's why that conversation was taking place with that individual.
Thank you. Those are my initial questions.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
Mr. Billings?
I certainly understand the predicament you're in. My question is, you've said that people are telling you they can't be fixed. Where's the evidence they can't be fixed? About 5 months ago, we had a similar application, maybe 6 or 7 months ago now, we had a similar application come in the Belcourt neighborhood where someone wanted to do almost the exact same thing, which is replace all of their windows for safety insulation, saying they couldn't repaint them, couldn't re-rope them. They didn't show pictures of any damage. They had no affidavits. They had no statements from contractors. Basically, they just came in and said, they're broken. We need them to replace.
And I agree, I'm identically situated to that situation. Yeah.
One, and we deny their application because
Not
on the
surprising.
grounds that there was insufficient evidence for us to conclude that they were damaged beyond repair and they have to be doing it.
Sure.
At this point, I don't have sufficient evidence to be able to find in the guideline that they are deteriorated beyond repair. That's the language that the guidelines require us to look at. So at this point, that's what I'm asking you is, do you have any evidence of that? You can show not
I do not have anything in the form of an affidavit other than the conversation that I've relayed.
Or pictures, or a written statement, or an estimate, something from your contractors besides just saying they've told us no.
No, that's all I have.
Thank you.
I'm going to jump in and follow up on Mr. pardon me, Mr. Billings' statement. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that again, this is another case and another property in another district, but I believe they came up with another solution to their total replacement window application, in which they went through a process of actually the sashes were all removed from the structure, and the glass was physically replaced. The sashes were refurbished, and then multi-plane glass and tempered glass on the bottom sections was used, and the original sashes were then put back into the original openings. And I cannot recall if they either eliminated the cord system or used the spring-loaded hangers, or simply used vinyl jam liners. And I think that there have been one or two other applications using that same sort of process. If I'm also not mistaken, I think they were also all in the Belcourt Historic District. But that might be something that you might want to explore. I think there have been three instances of that happening in Lexington, and I think they've all been successful. I think staff could probably give you specifics if you wanted to go by and look to see what it looked like about the specific addresses, and they might be able to pull the files from those previous
Figure out who did the
cases
work.
and who the people were. And of course, staff can't
Understand. They can't make a recommendation, but
specific, but they can certainly provide you materials regarding cases that have come through us. Sorry to interrupt there. I wanted to.
No, it's all, I don't have to say it now because they said a lot of it. Yeah, I think we've seen surveys in the past where owners have had consultants come in and look at each window and make a list. Window number 1, painted shut. You know, then we can start to break down the problems and see how big the issue is. If they're painted shut, you know, then we can start to see that it's not quite as daunting as first perceived. So, as it was stated before, we'd like to see something on paper that clarifies your disagreement with the staff's findings as far as the status of the windows that are in place now. Something else you also said in your presentation concerning the windows that you've submitted, the cut sheets that we have here in front of us. One of the things that we need to know before we can approve a window, and I believe the staff agrees, is how the divided light is handled. There's one drawing missing that would answer that question as far as...
cross-section or something?
Yes.
Okay. I don't speak architecture very much at all, but looking on the internet, I figured out what you're talking about. I understand.
Yeah, something that shows us how that's addressed, because there are good versions and versions we don't really care
Understood.
for. So that would help clarify if this window was an appropriate replacement, if that was deemed the way to go.
Okay.
Just to better arm you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Magrish?
I think that the project on Market Street, the Presbyterian Church Apartments that is currently under restoration, is using this new window system where the actual sashes are reused and the insulated glass is installed and so forth. There's some great advantages with it. Of course, you meet all the requirements of the historic district, so that gets you off the hook right there. It's also considered a green system because you're not throwing anything away. It's all being reused. Of course, you can introduce the tempered glass for safety. You can introduce glass that has a UV element to it that cuts down on light damage and things like that. but it is really it's sort of a cutting-edge way of handling the situation. And the one thing about old windows, even, from the World War I era that you were talking about, is the wood quality is actually much better than what you get even with a very expensive new wood window.
Got to cut down rainforests back then, yeah.
Yeah, and in many cases, that even though that process is a little bit more lengthy and so forth, you end up with a much higher quality window that is that does everything that you want it to do. So I think that it would be probably a good thing to look into it, and I believe it's something that could be done in phases. So you could, for economics, do maybe the front and the sides and back, whatever, and then submit it in that way.
I think is what we're saying is we all completely understand what you want to do with far as getting windows that are more energy efficient and that work for a variety of reasons, especially including safety and for both breakage and for opening. But that there may be a better way to accomplish it than just
And more study is necessary before.
Than just straight out replacement. If the application is denied this evening, you can't come back for the same application for a year unless you have new evidence. Is that the correct standard? Just want to make you aware of that with respect to a decision that we might make tonight to see if you wanted to either withdraw the application in case you want to come back or look at other alternatives that I can't say whether they would or would not be the same application, but to sort of let you know what.
I'm not going to withdraw. Just go ahead and thumbs down it, and
I just want to
I can work around that.
I just want to let you know what
sure.
decision we make tonight may affect you in the future, so that you're aware of those things.
I appreciate that.
I'd also add to the conversation that it sounds like you've made some clarifications that were unclear in the staff's report before as far as your intent versus what the staff believed your intent was. So that may be something worth talking about with the staff and coming back. We could almost, as opposed to denying it.
Well, just to interject,
continue?
it would be my opinion that should you choose to go any alternate route than total replacement, the year time that you would have to wait would not apply because
we wouldn't be asking for replacement. We'd be asking for permission to repair or whatever.
That would be my opinion, of course.
I would probably concur with that, saying it's a different application.
Just so you have that piece of information as well.
Of course, we haven't seen this, we can't say for sure, but that would be.
Okay, hypothetically.
Understood.
Ms. Sumner, anything else? Is anyone in the audience? There is no audience. Staff, anything? Okay.
Thank you.
Certainly, and thank you very much for explaining everything, and we'll see if we have a motion here for you. Anyone willing to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, with respect to case number 00710217-N, I move that the board adopt staff recommendation of disapproval as submitted for the reasons that have been stated on the record.
Thank you, Mr. Billings. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Mr. Magrish. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sir, thank you once again for bearing with us through this extended evening.
Thank you.
Hopefully you can get home to finish with the kids before you have to give the bad news.
Should be safe.
Let's see. Unless there's any other business this evening, I would certainly entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion of the motion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all very much.